start the press conference of the President of Lithuania, Dalia Grybauskaitė, Presidents of European Council and European Commission, Mr. Rompuy and Mr. Barroso. The press conference will start with the statements of each leaders and later time for your questions. So, Mr. Rompuy. Mr. Rompuy, please, can you please start? Yes, thank you.
First of all, I wish to express my gratitude to President Dalia Grybauskaitė for her hospitality and all the efforts to make this Vilnius summit a successful summit. This was the third Eastern Partnership Summit, and it is with great satisfaction that we had such a high level of participation of leaders from both the European Union and the Eastern partner countries, as well as from our stakeholders. This sends a strong message on the importance we attach to the Eastern Partnership, our commitment and shared ownership. The European Union is a dynamic project. European aspirations and European choice are not vain words. The European Union believes in close political ties and in the power of shared prosperity, because we know the benefits they bring to both sides. This was the starting point when we embarked upon this journey 4 years ago at the first Eastern Partnership Summit in Prague. All 34 countries that have met here today share a geographical and an economic space. Only by working closely together can we serve the interests of our citizens. And today, we welcomed the steps taken since the Warsaw Summit to strengthen Eastern Partnership, with the objective of building a common area of shared democracy, prosperity, stability, and increased interactions and exchanges. And we agreed on the importance of continuing to strengthen our ties, resolving potential conflicts, building trust, and nurturing good neighborly relations is essential to peace, to economic and social development, and cooperation in the region. Today marks an important milestone in the advancement of our common endeavor. We have finalized the negotiations of the most far-reaching agreements towards political association and economic integration ever conducted by the European Union. This was marked by our initialing with Georgia and Moldova of association agreements, including deep and comprehensive free trade areas. We will now jointly work towards the signature of these agreements as soon as possible in the course of next year. This has become an irreversible project. And we also signed a visa facilitation agreement with Azerbaijan and a framework participation agreement for participation in EU-led crisis management operations with Georgia. And yesterday, we initialed a common aviation area agreement with Ukraine. We also have an agreement on an Eastern Partnership transport network with a list of priority projects. And we welcome the announcement by Belarus that it is ready to start negotiations on a visa facilitation agreement with the European Union, and such an agreement will be to the benefit of all its citizens. We have set ambitious goals to be attained by 2015, ranging from strengthening democracy, human rights and the rule of law, to gradual steps towards visa-free regimes, improving the business climate, cooperation in research and innovation, improving transport networks, and increasing people-to-people contacts. So the list of deliverables is good and substantial. Unfortunately, we did not manage on this occasion to sign an association agreement including a deep and comprehensive free trade area with Ukraine and to initialize a similar agreement with Armenia. The European Union's position remains clear. The offer of signing the most ambitious agreement the European Union has ever offered to a non-member state is still on the table. We stand ready to sign with Ukraine once the benchmarks put forward by the European Union are met, and we are really close. We may not miss this rendezvous with history later on. We have to set aside short-term considerations, and we have to overcome pressure from abroad. This is a time of courage. This is a time of decisions. We will now work on the joint goals that we have agreed upon at the occasion of this summit. And we look forward to our next summit in 2015, where we will review the implementation of our commitments and chart the way ahead in the Eastern Partnership. Let me conclude by once again thanking the President of Lithuania for her hospitality in the magnificent city of Vilnius, and all the leaders from the Eastern Partnership countries and from the European Union for a truly stimulating debate during these 2 days. Thank you.
Madam President.
It looks like my turn. And I would like to go in Lithuanian in the very beginning, and then later I can answer in English. Taigi, rytų partnerystė.
Eastern Partnership, ladies and gentlemen. 4 years later, we can see the real results. For the first time in the history of this program, of the Eastern Partnership program, we have initialized and signed certain agreements. Moldova and Georgia, who have signed the agreements and initialized them, are ready to sign the free trade agreement with the EU in the near future. This means that those countries understand the importance of integration for the development of their countries, and that they are building both democracy and economic welfare. The EU is ready to help those countries on their road. The Eastern Partnership program guaranteed and offered a hand of support in order to strengthen democracy, economics, and human rights. But everything is in the hands of the countries themselves, if they want it. Therefore, today, we can see that Ukraine has unilaterally halted its process towards the EU, whereas the European Union remains ready to help the Ukrainian people to assist in their road to democracy, to human rights, where democracy and human rights has to become everybody's riches. So today, we as Europeans are together, we stand together with the Ukrainian people. The door to the European Union, to a deeper integration with the EU, is open to the entire Ukrainian society. Everything depends on the political elite now. This political elite, the Ukrainian government, might change their decision. And now, 3 countries of the Eastern Partnership have moved closer to democracy, closer to freedoms, and closer to their people. I'm very glad to say that today in Vilnius we're witnessing very specific results. I know that the coming years will be even more successful for Georgia and Moldova. We are therefore hoping that especially the Ukraine, before the meeting in Riga, will make its decisions which are useful for Ukraine itself. The EU is not going into any dealings with the Ukraine all the necessary benchmarks are known to the Ukraine. There will be no new benchmarks attached. And let me congratulate everybody on this occasion, everyone who did their best to make sure that the Vilnius meeting gives fruitful results. All the EU institutions, including the European Parliament and the member states, did their best. The very fact that 14 presidents and 19 prime ministers came to Vilnius shows, first of all, the respect of the European member states to our Eastern partners. It showed that we are committed to our ideals, that Europe has shown that it is never going to leave our Eastern partners alone, that Europe is ready to help. I therefore believe that this meeting in Vilnius is a significant historic step in the Eastern Partnership program. For some countries, this is a historic step closer to Europe. Thank you.
Let me first of all thank President Grybauskaitė and Lithuania for the organization of this very successful summit. 4 years ago, when we launched the Eastern Partnership, our objective was to support partner countries' political and economic reforms, to assist their modernization process, to move them closer to the European Union, while respecting the degree of closeness chosen by each one. And this Vilnius summit has been a summit of real progress, a summit where we have delivered on our commitments. The association agreements with Moldova and Georgia have been initialed today, and they are a very important force for change. I firmly believe that these association agreements, including a deep and comprehensive trade area, provide the best possible opportunity for political and economic reform today. And history can show us why. In the early 1990s, 10 Central and Eastern European countries signed up to free trade agreements with the European Union, including the country where we are today. Within 6 years, the GDP per capita in these countries has increased by 57%. Investment per capita had increased by 61%. And exports per capita have increased by 65%. As a result of these agreements, those 10 countries began one of the major transformations of their recent history. So I think it is very important to remind us of the record already of free trade agreements that we had before the accession of the new member states of the European Union. Contrary to what some are suggesting, these association agreements and free trade agreements have been an extremely important contribution to growth, to jobs, to social and economic development in all those partners, some of them that today are full members of the European Union. One of them is having the current presidency of the Council. It is precisely Lithuania. And in fact, yesterday and today we have discussed about this. Many of those new member states said what they have gained becoming members of the European Union and how important is the European Union as a guarantee of independence and of social economic development. During our summit today and yesterday, we have reiterated to Ukraine that the offer to sign these agreements remains on the table, provided the government of Ukraine delivers on its commitments. This agreement will save Ukrainian business some 500 million euros a year just in import duties. It will increase Ukraine's GDP by more than 6% in the longer term. And by confirming Ukraine's modernization pledge, it will also give momentum to billion-euro loan negotiations with international financial institutions. The Ukrainian people have demonstrated these last days that they fully understand the strategic nature of the reforms path. We know how much the Ukrainian people feels European, how much they care about Europe, how must they aspire to be recognized as members of the democratic community of nations of Europe. And we will, of course, now pursue our conversations with our Ukrainian partners, knowing well that we should always respect Ukraine's sovereign decisions. Because this partnership was from the very outset based on key principles of mutual respect, transparency, individual and collective ownership. This partnership was never an imposition, but rather a proposition. And all stand to gain, our neighbors and the neighbors of our neighbors. Let me be clear, this is a process for something. This is a process not against someone. This is a process for something. It is for democracy, for stability, and for prosperity. It is not against someone, because I don't believe someone should be against democracy, against stability, or against prosperity. And our partnership also has a real meaning for the citizens. Take firstly the issue of traveling without the need for a visa. Something very concrete, something that all our young people in Europe want, freedom of movement. Just a fortnight ago, the Commission published its final report on visa liberalization for Moldovan citizens. Moldova has met all the benchmarks set. So the European Commission has already issued a proposal to enable visa-free travel to the European Union for Moldovan citizens who own a biometric passport. And today we have also signed a visa facilitation agreement with Azerbaijan, which will make the process of applying for an European Union visa easier. By the way, with Azerbaijan, today we've heard the President and the members of the European Union also showing their commitment to the progress in our strategic modernization partnership. And today also we knew about the willingness of Belarus to negotiate a visa facilitation agreement. This, I'm sure, will be for the benefit of the Belarusian citizens, especially their young people. And I also hope that the future democratization of Belarus will enable the country to fully seize the potential of this partnership. So the point I want to make clear is the following. The Eastern Partnership is not just about the economy or not just about abstract concepts. It's about concrete benefits for citizens, removing barriers, enabling people to meet each other. It is, in fact, a transformational project of the highest importance. An important issue that we also discussed is energy, making sure that no European nation is an energy island, isolated from European networks. That is why we have taken very tangible steps over the last years to link our neighbors to the European Union market through new corridors, new physical connections, the possibility of reverse flows, support for their domestic energy reforms, and so on. Everything to bolster our shared energy security. And today we have shown, as European Union, that we can deliver on our commitments. I want to thank all of those that made possible the progress today. And allow me a special word of thanks to my colleagues in the Commission, of course to Vice President and High Representative Cathy Ashton, but also to Commissioner Füle, who is responsible for enlargement and neighborhood policy, and of course to the Commissioner for Trade, Karel de Gucht. And other colleagues also that are giving their contribution in energy or in the issue of visa-free travel, from Commissioner Oettinger to Commissioner Malmström. The European Commission is fully behind this agenda, and today I was very happy to see the strong support of all the European Union member states and also the willingness of our partners in the East to go forward in this common journey. I thank you.
So there is possibility for 3 questions, one for international media, one for Eastern Partnership media, and one for Lithuanian media. So news agency DPA, Alexander Welshner.
Alexander Welshner from German news agency DPA. The question goes to all 3, the whole panel. I have a question regarding the negotiation with the Ukraine about signing the agreement. Can you elaborate a bit more on the next steps, on the timelines, and when we can expect the agreement to be signed? And also a question would be then how you are going to convince the Ukraine to sign the agreement, and also what will be the approach towards Russia. Do we need a new strategy towards Russia, as Elmar Brok, for example, was already suggesting yesterday? Thank you.
So, as I said, we couldn't sign the association agreement and deep and comprehensive free trade area today. But the door is still open. We are ready to sign, we as a European Union, provided that the benchmarks we set a few months ago are met. And we made a lot of progress in meeting those benchmarks. Of course, there is no signature today. It is postponed, and we hope that sooner or later Ukraine will be ready to sign this agreement. In the meantime, we continue to have a dialogue with Ukraine according to the existing procedures and the normal channels, so that we can work with them on fulfilling the criteria, explain them also what the implications of the association and the free trade agreement is, help them, support them, technical and other means in their negotiations they will have with international financial organizations. So we confirm and reconfirm our commitment to be alongside Ukraine in the journey to signing this association agreement. And as the President of the European Commission just said, looking at the longer term, there is no doubt that this is really in benefiting Ukraine, Ukrainian economy, and Ukrainian people. The implications of the association agreement, but you have to see this in a dynamic perspective, will create a boost in the GDP, in the economic growth of more than 6%, not according to our sources, but according to independent sources. So it is in the long-term interest of the Ukrainian people. It is also the strong wish of the Ukrainian people, and it is shown these days that they really want that closer tie with the European Union. So we are on the side of the Ukrainian people. We are embarked on a long journey, helping Ukraine to become as other, what we call now, new member states. So there is a real perspective, but we have to set aside short-term political calculations, and we may not give in to external pressure, not the least from Russia. And that's why we wanted to stress and to emphasize our political readiness to sign sooner or later this association agreement, because we still believe, as I said, this is in mutual benefit, but in the first place, benefiting the Ukrainian economy and Ukrainian people.
Okay.
So, President,
maybe to add for clarity, there was no negotiations on signing, because Ukrainians' leadership came with very clear decision not to sign.
the question was, okay, news agency, Baltic News Service, and AFP, please.
Thank you. My name is Vaidotas Beniušis. Mr. Rompuy mentioned shortly about pressure from abroad to Eastern Partnership states. Is European Union ready to take any specific actions if the Russian pressure increases on Moldova and Georgia as they prepare to sign the associations agreements? A question to all three leaders. Thank you.
So we have it made abundantly clear, and I just did it, that this is not a zero-sum game. Stronger relations with the European Union do not come at the expense of relations between our eastern neighbors and their other neighbors, such as Russia. The time of the zero-sum game is over. And our strong conviction is that these kind of agreements is also benefiting Russia, because the better the economies in the neighborhood of Russia are performing, the better it is for Russia. And that's the strength of the European Union, that if it goes well with one country, all are benefiting from it. That is the essence of trade, that is the essence of trade relations. And we have on numerous occasions reiterated that action taken by Russia vis-à-vis the Eastern partners are incompatible with how international relations should function on our continent in the 21st century. The Union will continue insisting that any Russian actions aimed at influencing Eastern European partner countries' sovereign choices would be in breach of the Helsinki principles of the OSCE, which commit to respect each other's right, and I'm quoting, right freely to define and conduct as it wishes its relations with other states in accordance with international law. Russia is for us, for the Union, a strategic partner. We will have a summit with Russia by the end of January, and of course at that occasion we will discuss these issues, our relations with our Eastern partners, the relations with Russia with the Eastern partners, and the relations of Russia with the European Union.
I'd like to add the following, because there were some suggestions, as you know, they are made public, about a kind of a trilateral agreement between Ukraine, European Union, and Russia concerning this association agreement and DCFTA with Ukraine. Of course, this is not acceptable. We respect the sovereignty of all countries in the world. We have now concluded, and indeed already initialed, an association agreement with a sovereign country. It is Ukraine. And when we make a deal, a bilateral deal, we don't need a trilateral agreement for a bilateral deal. When we make trade agreements with Canada or with South Korea, we don't invite a third country to negotiate the finalization of this bilateral agreement. So for a bilateral agreement between the European Union and Ukraine, there should be no trilateral format. The times of limited sovereignty are over in Europe. Having said this, there are issues, practical issues, where we, European Union, have been proposing for a long time trilateral talks with Ukraine and Russia, for instance, in energy terms. And that offer still stands. We have said several years ago that it was important, for instance, regarding the relationship between Russia, Ukraine, and the European Union on energy, namely on gas, that the country of origin, Russia, the country of transit, Ukraine, and the country of destination, the consumers, the European Union countries, can meet together, of course, the European Union, and we can discuss these issues, always in a spirit of partnership with Russia as well. Because Russia is a strategic partner of Europe, a country that we very much respect. But the fact that we have a strategic partnership with Russia does not mean that when we are dealing with another country, we can accept any kind of third-party involvement in a bilateral relationship. This is a matter of principle for the European Union and for our member states, and it was very clearly stated at this point. But we can, I repeat, on a practical way, discuss matters of concern. The door is open. We'll discuss matters of concern that Ukraine may have, and we are ready to discuss them with Ukraine, with Russia, or whatever country. By the way, we have, during this process, discussed many energy issues with countries of the European Union. the issues of reverse flows. I personally have been discussing this matter, not only with Ukraine, present, but also with Prime Minister of Slovakia, for instance, and other countries. That is fair. That is nice. But what we cannot accept is a condition on a bilateral agreement to have a kind of a possible veto of a third country. This is contrary to all principles of international law.
External pressure, adding a little bit. I want to say that external pressure cannot be used as excuse for the decisions of sovereign country. And our experience of Lithuania, for example, showed that if you have political will to resist and not to give in, pressures are not working. So here probably we're seeing more external pressure used as excuse for stopping the integration process with the European Union by the leadership of Ukraine themselves.
So the last question, well, Romanian TV, please.
A question for President Rompuy and President Barroso, please. EU officials already said that Moldova will sign next year association agreement with EU, and that the Transnistrian issue is not a precondition, even if Ukraine didn't sign the agreement. These days, Russians said that Moldova cannot negotiate without asking Tiraspol, and suggested that Moscow will accept Transnistria status. So, what kind of settlement do you see for Transnistrian conflict? Thank you.
Well, the European Union, and it is said many times before, supports all the efforts to find the solution in the framework of the 5+3 talks, 5+2 talks. That's the first point. The second point is that we strongly support, of course, the territorial integrity of Moldova, as we support the territorial integrity also of other countries, by the way, also in Georgia. And according to us, the signing of the association agreement with Moldova can go on independently of any other negotiations on Transnistria. So we initialed, and we will sign, of course, when all the procedures are respected, and we will sign in the course of 2014. The sooner, the better.
Thank you for coming to the press conference. So, thank you.